Hello and welcome to another video about my Humber. I've done a few things since my last video, the most recent being that I've replaced the instrument voltage stabiliser. This little box is mounted behind the dashboard and makes sure that the temperature and petri gauges get 10 volts so that they give a consistent reading. I did this because both seem to be reading low. I guess there could be a few reasons why this might be, like the sensors or the gauges being faulty, or problems of wiring, or in the case of temperature, perhaps a worn thermostat so the engine isn't heating up fully. But they're both low, and this is common to both. It seemed a good idea to replace it. I think I've got the right one. The site I bought it from said it was for Mark 1 and Mark 2 Scepters, whereas this is a Mark 3. But it also says it's for all variants of the Hunter, amongst a number of other cars. So I'm hoping the Mark 3 Scepter counts as a Hunter variant in this case, which I suspect it does. I also bought a PDF download of the Roots Hunter Variants Workshop Manual, which includes this car and has details on how to place it, which is handy. So the new one's fitted, and now the gauges are showing high values. So the petrol is still lower than I think it should be, but it's still an improvement. I also had a problem with the brake light not always working. Turned out that the connector had just snapped and the cable was just being held in place by the insulation. So fitted a new connector to that too. Another thing I've done, it's a job that was long overdue, it should be one of the first things I did really, is an oil and filter change. So I've used this Halford's 20W50 oil and also got a oil filter from elsewhere. Draining it wasn't too difficult. It just comes out this plug at the bottom left of the engine, left as you look at it from the front. So for once, drained it out without getting all over the garage floor. The only tricky bit was getting the filter off because that was um, stuck on, and I went and got this removal tool from Halfords, which seems a nice piece of kit. Fits onto a spanner, a socket spanner handle, and it's got these three prongs and go over the top. And the more pressure you put on it, the more they dig into the filters. So yeah, it really did, grip tight and remove that one. So yeah, I'm pleased I got that. That'd be useful for future as well, probably. So yep, done that and then refilled it. So that's good. Check the level since, and that's now bang in the middle between max and min, so that's good. And I've also replaced the spark plugs because the old ones were getting on quite a bit and they were quite sooty, so yeah, new set of those as well. The car had been getting increasingly difficult to start over the last few weeks, or start from cold, to the point where it wouldn't start at all. And to cut a long story short, replacing the coil fixed it, which was a surprise really because it was a fairly new coil and I had very little use. The longer story is that when the engine did start, it would run fine, and so it didn't seem anything too major. I checked and there was not a spark, so I looked over the ignition system but couldn't see anything obviously wrong. The first thing I decided to do was fit a voltmeter in case the voltage was dropping too much because of the current being taken by the starter, but so far as I could tell, that seemed okay. So next I decided to take the electronic ignition out and refit points. That made a bit of an improvement but didn't fix it. I checked the distributor cap and rotor arm and they all looked good, so I thought next to try the coil. I still had an old coil that being there a few years ago, and so putting that back in, I tried again and everything's been fine since. Um, One advantage of going back to having points instead of electronic ignition is that I could get the timing set better. Um, Now I could follow the manual and so connected the light between the distributor connection and ground. And with the engine so that cylinder 1 was near the top, I turned it so that the timing marks on the crankshaft pulley aligned to about 8 degrees before top dead center, and then adjusted the distributor so that the light just came on. 8 degrees is the midpoint of the static timing range, and that seems fine for this car, and it's not needed any more adjustment since. I think that covers everything I've been doing in the car recently. It'd be nice to take that on a good long trip at some point, which I will do. But still just taking it on local trips, but a bit longer and longer ones, just like build up confidence in the car after all the issues over the last 2 to 3 years. But yeah, that's it for this one then, and thank you very much for watching.